Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of From the Chair with Big Money Exchange. Big Money is carefully driving home,
Yeah, I'm looking at the
and
speed limits this time.
our executive producer is doing some wonderful work with. Oh, nope, here he is.
My $1 million player.
So, welcome, Tony,
Hey,
to
Tony Khan!
the
Welcome.
podcast,
One more day.
Hey guys.
I'm off work. So,
and we want to
Tony?
say welcome to our guest tonight, Big Guns, uh, Big Guns, Justin Andrews. Hello,
You got
sir.
it,
How are you?
baby. The one and only.
Of course, there's only one and only. Because there's the best one, right? So,
Yeah, you got it. Genuine article. You're looking at him.
so can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the questions?
did you get the faces?
Sure. The down and dirty is.
I didn't get the bases, no.
Hey,
Whoa.
Whoa.
Sorry
a little
about that.
loud there, Tony Khan.
We have an interloper. That's all right.
No,
You know,
he's working with Special Olympics.
I gotta say, I have done a lot of podcasts, and I was super excited to do this one because I knew right away it was going to be unique. And from the get go, we've got two of the hosts are driving and doing other things. I love it. I love flying by the seat of my pants. Like I like it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this is great. We're on. Some people might be thrown off, not me. I'm in my prime. Okay, so here's a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Missoula, Montana. I always had a love for professional wrestling. This is not a love that is shared by anyone in my family. It was, of course, by a lot of my friends. So I was born in 1983, so it was the perfect age. I got to see Hulkamania as a little kid. I got to see the NWO and DX right as I was about to become a teenager. And then as an adult, I got to see like right in that prime SmackDown era. So I had a lot of great plans about professional wrestling when I was in high school. I had a group of friends that we all loved professional wrestling. We were tape traders back in the day. For those watching and listening, that's where you'd get these tapes from faraway lands. Like I'd get one from Japan, and my buddy would have some independent stuff from, say, Nashville, Tennessee. So we'd trade it. And then you'd go on old message boards online and you would ship them all around the country. So that's the kind of wrestling fans we were. In high school, me and one friend decided we wanted to be professional wrestlers. So we applied for the WCW Power Plant in Georgia. We were seniors in high school. And we got sort of that like tentative yes. It was like a form letter. But it was like, oh, yes, when you turn 18 and graduate high school, contact us again, and it will cost you this amount of money. Make sure you have this amount of money up front, and you too can come train at the world famous WCW Power Plant. So we were like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. And then two things happened. One, WCW went out of business, and two, 9/11. So both of those things happened while I was a senior in high school. And we both ended up joining the military. He ended up going to the Army. I ended up joining the Marine Corps. And
Thank you for your service.
Oh, believe me, it was my pleasure. It wasn't really a pleasure, but we'll get more into that, I'm sure, as the interview continues. But while I was in the Marine Corps, I met some professional wrestlers while I was in Japan. They let me into their ring and sort of like beat me up a little bit. And as luck would have it, one of these Japanese fellows had a cousin who had a school in Hawaii where I was stationed. And that's where I started my training. And so while I progressed through the military and started seeing combat and things like that, as I was back in the States, I just knew I needed some outlet. And that outlet was professional wrestling. I yearned for sort of that aggression and that combat. And we sort of dovetailed because being in the military has allowed me to move all over the country, which has allowed me to wrestle all over the country. An opportunity that a lot of people on the independent wrestling scene just don't get. just because it's expensive to move. And I did it on the government dime. So this past February, I retired from the military, and I have slowly been making the transition away from the ring as well. I do still wrestle. I wrestle on special occasions and for special promotions. And right now, I also do a lot of commentary. So sort of, again, straddling both worlds as I get older. I've been doing this professional wrestling thing since 2004, so almost 20 years. And, your body can only take so much. So that's where I'm at now. You guys have caught me sort of at the end of my career. And that's only because podcasts like this did not exist at the beginning of my career. All right, there we go. I think I covered it all. Oh, no. We lost the co-host.
Yeah, he'll come back, though.
All right.
One of the downfalls of driving it. It's funny you said commentary because I was thinking as you were talking, man, this guy has a voice for commentary. So, with like your excitement. So, can you tell us some of your wrestling heroes growing up?
Yeah. Like I said, I was real lucky to be born when I was. I was born in the summer of 1983. So shortly thereafter, we had, WrestleMania 1. And I can remember Hulkamania for some of the older kids, right? Like my older cousins. I'm the oldest of two siblings, but some of my older cousins were sort of already into Hulk Hogan when I came along. And I remember being really into the Ultimate Warrior. That's like the first kind of real feud that's cemented in my brain was Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. So, and I really like the Ultimate Warrior. Sorry, everyone. I know everyone talks about how he wasn't a great wrestler, but guess what? When you were a little kid who was 5, 6, 7 years old, he was amazing. He was like everything. He was like a superhero come to life. Literally, I didn't care how he wrestled, right? I was a little kid. And through Ultimate Warrior, again, one of these older cousins or perhaps a friend's older brother was like, oh, yeah, you like Ultimate Warrior? You have to check out this other dude, Sting. And that blew my mind. I couldn't believe it because I was used to watching the WWF. There was other stuff around in my area, but I didn't know about it. I was a standard, late 80s, early 90s kid. I really only knew about WWF. So when this individual, and I seriously have no idea who it was, but it was some older, kid told me about this dude Sting. And once I finally saw Sting, I was like, this is incredible. This dude looks like the Ultimate Warrior. He talks way better than the Ultimate Warrior, and he's doing stuff the Ultimate Warrior could never even dream of. So that was really my first person that I idolized in wrestling. I liked the Ultimate Warrior, and I liked Hulk Hogan. I liked Macho Man. I really liked Mr. Perfect. I liked all those guys. But to me, Sting was like a hero. And it just so happened, again, I'm sort of the right age, so it was the summer of 96, right, when the NWO thing happened. So I was like 12, about to be 13. Perfect age to once again be super into this cool brooding dude who's in the rafters and coming down and kicking the NWO's butt. Oh, my goodness, it's Sting again. So I was able to sort of follow Sting for quite a bit. I was really into him. And then I was into some other weird people like the Filthy Animals, which is still my all-time favorite wrestling stable.
Thank you. Not a lot of people say that.
I love it. I love every iteration of it. When the disco thing happened, where it was disco with the Q, unreal. Absolute unreal. And I was like in on the joke, right? Like I knew what was up. But yeah, the Filthy Animals I thought were super cool. I was always really into Harlem Heat. I liked the Harlem Heat feud when they brought in Ahmed Johnson or Big T or whatever they call him.
Big T, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, through Sting, I was sort of like inherently a WCW guy. And I was really, for a good chunk of years, probably from like age 15 to 17, really into Diamond Dallas Page. Whenever his book came out, I think it was called Positively Page, whatever his first book was. I read it and I was like, man, this is a guy who's like really inspiring, because all the inspiring stories they tell you sort of in school or whatever, those are almost like mythical, like political figures and things like that. Like I can't relate to Rosa Parks or Abraham Lincoln or, something like that. But I could actually relate to Diamond Dallas Page. I knew people who grew up in a lot of the same circumstances he did. And especially his like struggle with literacy. That was never anything, I ever personally had to worry about, because both my parents were avid readers and I was able to read from a young age, thankfully. And to know like that DDP couldn't read until he was like in his 30s, but was still successful in spite of that, like in the business world, man, that was crazy. So I was very much into DDP. I still am, on a different level now that I'm an adult. But yeah, those are sort of who I was really into. And, like I said, as WCW died, that was sort of right when I was turning 18 and senior in high school, that kind of time. So I was sort of transitioning to being an adult anyway. So there was a good 2-year period there where I didn't watch a lot of wrestling at all. Just because I was busy doing Marine Corps stuff and not really watching wrestling. And then I got back into it once I started training. Oh no, we've lost both of them.
No, he's coming back. He just switched from his phone to his computer.
I didn't think we were going to be able to hold it down, just the two of us.
Okay.
Well, you said you were ready for a wild ride, so here we go.
All right.
Yeah, but we lost Dodge.
Yeah, he said he has some big money moves to make, so he wants us to handle it tonight. He might pop into the comments.
Gotcha.
All right, fair enough.
All right, so where were we?
Okay.
So before we go to the next question, you brought up the filthy animals. Thank God for the filthy animals, and I say this all joking aside. You brought up the Disco Inferno. Without the filthy animals and the Disco Inferno, we wouldn't have the Disco Duck.
Look, all I'm saying is I have pictures somewhere, not in my current home, but perhaps in one of my parents' homes, of me and a high school girlfriend who would later go on to be my wife of soon to be 19 years. And I am wearing a baggy hockey jersey with a huge FA on the front of it and Rey Mysterio's cross on the back of it. So
That is so cool.
yes, I was into the filthy animals a little bit. They were seriously like the coolest dudes I'd ever seen at that point. And I thought that was like legit, I was like, because I was in on it, right? I never thought wrestling was on the up and up. Even when I was a little kid, like the secret was out. But the filthy animals, I was like, yeah, like these other guys are playing characters and stuff, but this is like for real. So when Disco showed up, I'm like, yeah, like he's not really like a disco guy, but that guy's probably pretty dorky in real life. And lo and behold, that's also kind of true.
Yeah. Okay, Tony, do you have your first question?
Let's do top 5 independent female wrestlers.
Oh, top 5 female independent wrestlers. Man. All right, I'm going to say number 1, and I hope that she's watching this somewhere because I don't think she's ever like officially said she's done with wrestling, but she hasn't had a wrestling match in a while because she's got a whole lot of other great stuff going on in her life. But my number 1 female independent wrestler is from right here in Colorado, and that's Ollie Gatto. She is a trendsetter for women here in Colorado. We've been fortunate here in Colorado. We've had a lot of great women wrestlers over the last really 25 years. And Ollie Gatto was one who helped train a lot of people and super influential, not just here in Colorado, but outside the state as well. So that's my number 1. Number 2 is Tyra Rusame. Again, she is here in Colorado now, originally from Thailand. There's so many great ones. Number 3, I'm going to go with a personal favorite of mine, and I know she's not everyone's cup of tea, but that's going to be Sage Sin out of California. Open Secret, that's Supreme's daughter. For those of you who are into the old deathmatch stuff from California, and I've got great stories about being able to meet Supreme and then being in his Memorial Battle Royal, but maybe for later. I got 2 more to go. Geez, the pressure's on. My number 4 would be my good, close personal friend, Joan Jetson, but she just retired last weekend. Speaking of commentary, I had to do commentary for, and we're legitimately very close friends. And boy, that was tough. That was tough. I know I'm animated, but I'm not generally a super emotional guy. And it was tough for all 3 of us. There's 3 of us doing commentary because she's great friends with all of us. So that would be my number 4, but she's retired. So, let me think of like a boy. All right. So number 4 is definitely going to be Heidi Howitzer. Again, that would be Joan Jetson, but she's retired. So number 4 is going to be Heidi Howitzer. And then, number 5, I'm going to give to another really talented young lady here in Colorado Springs. She's been working her butt off and really impressing me lately, and that is Hussey Steele. And she recently did an international tour. She's only been wrestling like 13 months maybe, and she just did her first international tour into Canada. So that's pretty impressive to me. And then my honorable mention for number 6 is a non-binary wrestler also from here in Colorado named Kay Daver. And, when you're non-binary, you don't really identify one way or the other. Kay Daver wrestles men and women. So they get the honorable mention, but they'd be very high on the list if they qualified strictly as a female. So there we go. Take a sip of my beverage here. I'm covering the logo.
And Kay
No
Dever
trademark strikes, boys.
And Kay Dever was actually on our podcast earlier about a month ago, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely. You guys have been doing so much great stuff with the people, not only here in Colorado, but who come here to Colorado a lot. So awesome to see that. I love the synergy. Makes me feel comfortable. I feel right at home amongst you.
So before you ask your next question, Nathan, let me plug this because I told Mr. Root I would.
I hoped you would, so go ahead.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the podcast, as we know, as we hyped up, CSW is having their Headlocks for Hospice this weekend. Randy has been asking for donations. This podcast has even generously donated $100 of our own money to the cause. Yeah, so if we as a little podcast can donate, everybody can too. So please, 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 please donate to Headlocks for Hospice. Every dime Mr. Rude promises goes to hospice.
Yeah, it's been a great cause. We've been doing it for years now. Randy is so good at getting media coverage. We did, he used to have a ring in his backyard because we didn't have any other area to train. No one would rent a building to us. And Randy Rude said, we got to get our guys a place to train. F it. We'll put it in my backyard. I'll deal with the neighbors. So that was, I think, the first or second Headlocks for Hospice. We did like a live newscast from his backyard, but we're wrestling, and some of the neighbors indeed did come out because it was 7 a.m. in the morning or whatever. And there's me and another wrestler named B Mobile just power slaying because we're big guys. So we're doing the big impressive moves in the background while the news guy's talking. Anyway, but that's the kind of guy Randy Root is. He was like, he said, I'll deal with the neighbors. You guys, whatever. I'm sure he paid him off and barbecue or something. You work to deal with them.
Probably.
But yeah, we always raise a ton of money. I missed the one last year because I was deployed on my final deployment before I retired. So I'm happy to be back. I'm doing commentary this year, and hospice care is one of those things that I never really thought about. I've had elder relatives pass away, but none that I was geographically close to. So I don't really know and never really asked how they spent sort of their final time. So, hospice care is something that I never really thought about until Randy Rude brought this cause to our attention. And, once you start to hear the stories and how meaningful it is, it's something that's really important. So I always donate a little bit of something, usually one of my books or some merchandise or something like that. And most of the wrestlers do too. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that we wish we could give thousands and thousands of dollars, but everyone's circumstances are different. So even if it's just $1, believe me, that will go to good use because, like you said, Randy personally puts his name on the line that every dollar goes to hospice. And I've seen the receipts.
Very nice.
And Randy's a great dude. He's been on our podcast a couple of times also. So, I mean, he's a great dude, and we were honored to actually donate ourselves. I mean, as soon as we seen it online, we immediately jumped right on it. So, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you guys for doing that.
Okay. So that's my plug for CSW. Go Panda. Go Panda on Saturday.
I was going to say, I bet you're going to want to say something about Panda after that last question.
She was almost my number 5. She was almost my number 5 in that other one. That was a tough choice.
Full disclosure, he has to be the biggest non-Colorado Pandemonium fan in the world.
I like that you said non-Colorado because she is over like Rover here.
I'm probably her only non-Colorado fan.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean,
ooh, yeah. If you knew what I know, she is going to be hitting the road this year.
I hope so.
Guaranteed.
That's a good thing.
Hope she comes to Washington, man.
I've got the connections, man. I can make it happen.
Absolutely.
That is true.
Let me put a few things together. The next Glamour show out there in Port Orchard, I'm going to put the Big Gun stamp on Pandemonium being there. I'll pay for airfare if I have to.
Ooh.
Very nice.
Do you hear me, JD Mason? Are you watching this? That's the gauntlet, baby. He didn't know we didn't plan this out. I'm just right now. JD, if you're watching.
And Panda, if you're watching this, if he brings you to Port Orchard, I will personally be there to watch you.
And I will too. I don't care if I got to take my wheelchair and drive behind somebody's car holding a rope, doing water skiing across the freeway. Although that would make a good news story.
Okay, so let's get to your next question, Nathan.
So, can you give us in honor of Big Money, can you give us your top 5 managers of all time?
Oh, God. I hate this question so much. So, number 1 is Bobby the Brain Heenan. That one, I would say, is not super close for me. I know it is for a lot of people. And I think Bobby himself would say he's number 1.
Yep. Yeah.
But I think literally everyone beneath him would agree. So Bobby's number 1, easy. Number 2, I'm going to go with Cornette. Controversial though he may be. Now, so this is me personally. This is my personal opinion. Number 3 is Lou Albano. I know a lot of people wouldn't put him that high, but for me, I remember him as Mario. So, and I remember the Cyndi Lauper videos. I have an aunt who's not too terribly much older than me. Hi, Aunt Jenny. So I can remember her like watching the Cyndi Lauper videos and being into that, and that's probably the first time I saw Captain Lou, and then I saw Mario, and then from old WrestleMania tapes, I was like, oh. Number 4, I'm probably gonna go with number 4. I'm gonna go. Hear me out. Number 4, I'm gonna go with Harley Race.
Ooh.
I know that's a bold choice because he really only ever managed Vader, but I think his managerial stuff there is so good that it puts him just barely above my number 5, which is obviously the one people are like, why won't he say it, is Paul Heyman.
I like that list.
Thank you.
And the thing that people don't remember about Harley Race is they almost put him with Steve Austin.
Man, that would have been. I don't know how much we would have got later on after that, but man, him and I think it would have turned Stunning a little meaner a little earlier, but it could have been.
Tony, you're up.
Okay, so I'll give you a break on the top 5 for a minute, but we love our top 5 questions, so there's more to come.
Yes, there is.
The best actor or wrestler turned actor.
I'll tell you who it isn't. It's not Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Now, I love The Rock. Again, right age. So I was recently, last summer, I was back home for my 20th high school reunion. And we had, the slideshow going. We're all in the venue and drinking and laughing and catching up. And there's like 6 pictures in a row of me with sideburns down to here, cut just like The Rock's, with the loudest, most out freaking rageous shirts you've ever seen, and the fakest gold chain you've ever seen. And it was like 6 in a row. It was different shirts. I mean, this was multiple days worth of pictures, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I was that into The Rock. So I do love The Rock. I love his energy drink. I love his tequila. I love all the stuff he does for charity. Love the XFL. Terrible freaking actor. He's very good at being The Rock in the movies, but he's never going to be anything but that.
Right.
Man, this is one that I feel like a lot of wrestlers are probably going to say this, and it's going to be Roddy Piper.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned him because actually a lot of people haven't mentioned him. It's only been a few on this podcast.
There's only been like 2 or 3, yeah.
Really? Man, I love, They Live, of course, is legitimately a classic in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion. But even his super cheesy stuff, Hell Comes to Frogtown, like if you're in on the joke, like you're not watching it to be a serious movie, as I imagine when they were making it, they also were not super serious. It's really flipping good. And then the last sort of acting stuff he did on the show, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yep.
So funny. Just, oh man, there's so many great characters already on that show, and his always stands out. So yeah, he could really do a lot of different genres, and his comedy stuff super underrated.
So I have a soft spot in my heart for Roddy Piper because, in wrestling, you have those, like, when you're a fan, you have those, like, mind-blowing moments where, like, something happens and you, like, revert back to a child, even though regardless of how old you are. And I was at the Portland Wrestling Uncut, the last, like, chance he did trying to get Portland Wrestling back, rebooted.
Yep.
And it was my birthday. So the lady came up to me and she's like, is there anything we can do for your birthday? And so I went big. I was like, well, can I meet Roddy Piper? Thinking, that's kind of out there, but I'm just going to throw it out there, see what happens. And she's like, yeah, give me 15 minutes. But you're still thinking, like, maybe it's not going to happen, right? Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
She
And so
comes
I'm
back like,
talking-
"Oh, I'm sorry. Here's a photo or whatever."
here's a side photo or whatnot, right? So I'm talking to his son, Colt, and I'm thinking, okay, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden somebody taps me on the shoulder, and that's Roddy Piper as I like turn and look up. And I literally have the picture in my room, and I have the dumbest look on my face, like, I can't believe this is happening. The only problem was he had been drinking before he came out, so I got a contact buzz when he said hello. But that was Roddy Piper, so I mean,
I'm sure at that point his tolerance was high enough. He was probably stone cold sober. With an amount
he was.
Fell a normal man. But isn't that remarkable? Because he was such a dastardly villain for the vast majority of his career. And he in real life, you almost never hear a bad story about the guy unless you're some drunk idiot trying to fight him in a bar, and then he probably ripped your eye out or some crazy nonsense.
I was gonna say, then you're in trouble because he didn't play. So if you had one dream opponent from any generation, no questions asked, who would it be and why?
Any generation. This is one of those tough questions because, and I've said this before in other avenues. A lot of times people tend to pick someone who's very similar to them. And I don't think those matches tend to be all that great. You can have like unlike styles, right? Like oil and water. And then you can just have too much oil. And styles that are too similar just don't work all that well. So for me in the ring, I like to consider myself like a higher flying Taz. More like Taz when he was the Tasmaniac. But I don't think me versus the Tasmaniac would actually be a very good match. I would like to be against someone who's very athletic, who's very big, who's also entertaining, and has a proven track record of being a main event in multiple promotions. So for me, it's got to be Bam Bam Bigelow.
Love that choice.
I mean, I don't wrestle very much like him at all. One thing I do is I do the top rope headbutt. And from early on in my career, I very much swan dived it. And I'd only been in the business about 3 years when He Who Shall Not Be Named did the unspeakable down there in Georgia. And so after that, I couldn't really do the swan dive thing anymore, just in good conscience. So I tried to modify it a little bit. And I found the best way to do it is the way that Bam Bam used to do it. He would sometimes do it from even the second rope, and it would still look devastating. But he would almost just like fall. So
Right.
For anyone who goes onto my social media, you can see pictures of me doing the headbutt where I'm literally looking at like I'm just kind of like falling. And for me, I can deliver all the impact of my head onto the opponent and still land really comfortably. Because the problem with the swan dive, He Who Shall Not Be Named style is it crushes your down there parts every time you do it.
Ouch.
And if I do it like Bam Bam, who I guess had way more down there than Mr. Benoit did, you don't do that. You just kind of, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, Bam Bam Bigelow. That's my final answer, Bam Bam Bigelow. And I apologize if you hear the cat. She's hearing me get excited and animated into this interview, and now she wants to be a part of it. She's a very talkative cat.
It's okay. I grew up with all kinds of animals, so I understand that completely.
Yeah.
And it's funny you said Taz because I like to compare people on this show when I watch their stuff.
Oh boy.
And I know the first person I thought of was Taz, but with like the sudden quickness of a current day like wrestler, which would be like Baron Corbin. You know what I mean? The way he can like move around the ring and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So.
Have you ever seen any of Taz's stuff as the Tasmaniac?
Yes, I was a huge ECW fan. So
Okay, so I liked him more from a fan standpoint after the broken neck, when he became like the super badass, like after the man, I'll never forget it. So like I said, I was a tape trader, so I got a tape of, and I don't remember which event it was. It might have been a Heat Wave, where he's doing commentary all night with Joey Styles. And then at the very end, the camera switches to them, kind of pans out. And I don't remember Joey Styles' exact words, but it's something to the effect of, the man that I've been doing commentary with all night is named Peter Sinatra, but you know him better as Taz. And it like zooms out a little bit, and he's there, and he has the biggest dip of Copenhagen I have ever seen in a man's lip. And I grew up watching 1990s baseball. I mean, that thing is monstrous. And he just looks dead at the camera and literally spits into the cup. It's insane. Anyway.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's the Taz I really like as a fan. But as a wrestler, and what I admire the most is the Tasmaniac, because he didn't quite have the devastating amount of suplexes and submissions yet. But he was more explosive because, of course, he had not yet broken his neck.
Right. All right, Tony, you're up.
All right, back to the top 5. Top 5 indie male wrestlers.
Okay. So I can name a lot of people that get a lot of love, and they deserve that love 100%. There's a lot of independent wrestlers that, just by the nature of our industry, will never get a chance to be on the big time. But they can influence hundreds of other wrestlers and tens of thousands of fans, and they deserve all those accolades. And sometimes there's wrestlers who don't even get to that point. And that's a bummer too. And sometimes there's wrestlers who straddle that line.
Right.
So I'm going to try and shout out 5 of my personal favorite wrestlers that straddle that line. They've influenced a ton of wrestlers, and maybe they're well known only in their local area. Or maybe they've done a ton of traveling, but they haven't quite hit that one big promotion that has like 500 or 600 fans yet. So they're kind of known around the United States, but not yet by a big audience. And basically, it's 5 people that are my friends who I think deserve a bigger platform. And number 1 is a guy he's got a huge platform, so there's really no reason for me to say he doesn't, but his is on TikTok. That's Mikey O'Shea. He's out of California. Man, he's got so many great TikTok like things that he's a part of. He's the Element of Surprise guy. He has several other good ones, but he has a huge audience on TikTok. And again, he's wrestled all over the country, but he hasn't quite had that breakout chance yet. And I think it's coming. I really think, I'm not trying to jinx anything, but I think this year is going to be the year that, man, eyes are really going to be on him. He's going to get that big chance. I'm manifesting it, Number 2 is another good friend of mine. And this one's going to make a lot of sense when I say, even though I personally have a very serious take on professional wrestling, I'm like a fun-loving guy, but when I'm in the ring, it's business, right? I enjoy, and the reason I prefer professional wrestling to something like boxing or MMA is I really love that entertainment aspect. And so for me, is number 2? Yes, number 2.
Yeah.
Number 2 is from right here in Colorado, and that's my close personal friend, Johnny Crash. So Johnny Crash, for those of you who don't know, is one of the most beloved wrestlers here in the Rocky Mountain region. he's traveled quite a bit around. He's definitely done a ton of stuff in like Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, Kansas. I know he's in Texas. I think he did Arizona. He's been kind of in this area, but he's gone outside that area from time to time too. Like he's wrestled at the Gathering with the Juggalo Championship Wrestling and stuff. But this guy is like the epitome of what you want as an entertaining professional wrestler, right? And that's the reason he's so beloved, because he's got all the moves. He's super intimidating. He beats the crap out of people. He's got bright colors. He moves his body. You can't explain it. You just got to be there. You got to check out Johnny Crash. Number 3 is another one right here in Colorado. And this is one that I would say, like, he's not well known. He's definitely well known, and especially in certain pockets of the country. And this is one of those where you're like, man, how is this dude like not on the big stage yet? And I think the reason why is because luckily for him, he's still super young. And I think those big opportunities, they're just waiting for him to mature just a little bit. And that is Monster Zero Filter Dorian Maddox. If you guys have seen this dude, you know, he used to just go by Filter. And he got kind of sick of that. He's like, you know what? I want people to know my real freaking name. So now he goes by the Filter Maddox. And, man, this dude is legit 7 feet tall. And I've wrestled him. I can't remember the exact number. It's over 50 times. And we've wrestled each other. And we've wrestled each other primarily here in Colorado, of course, but in other states. I don't think there's really a major promotion outside of like Rocky Mountain Pro that we haven't wrestled each other on for a variety of championships. And, man, this dude, he is the next big thing, I'm telling you. So he's awesome. Then for my number 4, oh, man, you guys are killing me. So my number 4 is a guy who's from the Northeast, and he's a guy I've known for so many years. And so these last 2 are both going to be guys who are wrestler promoters. And the reason I love these guys to death, not only because I've known both of them well over 10 years, and when, you know, of course, we were young in the business when we met both these guys. These are just like what you want to see in the business, right? They're mentors, they're promoters, so they're giving wrestlers a platform. They're so unselfish, you know. A struggle for a wrestler promoter, because we have such big egos, is to not give ourselves and our friends all the championships and all the best opponents. And both these guys don't do that because they love the business too much for that. So number 4 is my friend Mikey Everynight. He is from out of New York in the Buffalo area. Man, I have this funny picture. It's on my social media. And this was when I was living in New York. I was stationed in New York. And it was the first time I had hit a certain age group in the military fitness test. So I was able to run about 2 minutes slower on my run time and still get a good score. So I started hitting the weights really heavy. So I'm like this blimp of a person. And I'm with Mikey, who's naturally of a very small build. But back then he was, 22 or so. I was 24, 25. And it is like the funniest picture because we're about the same height. But I'm just like, I'm so much bigger than him, and we're smiling. And his chest is just purple. I mean, it is like dripping with blood. And we're in a battle royal. And I hit him once, and the sound was so good. We're like, all right, let's do all 4 corners. I don't remember if it was his idea or someone else's, but someone was like, now reverse it. And so I was like, what? Remix. And we went around the other. And so for the fans watching, I'm well known for a very hard chop. And the reason why, I believe, is not because of weightlifting. It's because I have played the game of disc golf, sometimes called frisbee golf, since I was 7 years old. I'm 39 now. So 32 years of this motion, right? That's how you throw a frisbee.
Right,
disc
yeah.
golf, which is coincidentally, for those watching at home, this motion.
They motion for a chop.
A chop. So I'm well known for having devastating chops. So, and then of course, Mikey took a few more, but he's also the one who I developed a spot that's modified from a Jerry Lawler position, where I invite someone to give me a headlock. Now, as a knowledgeable pro wrestler, I know that the unchivalrous person who is taking my free headlock, because I generally offer it to them as they're, running away from me, as Mikey was wont to do. I offer them the headlock, and I know, as did Jerry Lawler, that they are going to try and cheat. So before they can cheat, I lift them up and slam them on their backs. Well, Mikey was the first person to outsmart me, and as I go for the scoop, he floated around and put me into a front guillotine. And I thought I was toast, because remember how I said Mikey was slight of build? Well, you know what happens to a forearm when someone is slight of build is it's all bone. So it's all bone against my carotid artery. And the only thing I could think of was, again, getting back to Taz, is I was like, I gotta suplex this guy. And so up we went, and I could have held him up there forever, but he was already cutting off all the blood to my head, and down he went. So he outsmarted me, but in the end, I simply outpowered him. I'm sorry that took like 5 minutes to tell you again. Number 4 is Mikey.
That's fine.
Number 4 is Mikey every night out in New York, and number 5 is right from your guys' neck of the woods. One of my longest and greatest friends in the business. That's Mr. JD Mason. He runs Northwest Pro Wrestling. He runs Glamour Women's Pro Wrestling, which let's hope there's going to be some more Glamour shows, because they're awesome. He always brings in a ton of great women's talent for those, mostly out of like that Port Orchard area there. And the Key Peninsula Civic Center out of Vaughan. Anyway, he is, again, one of those dudes. I go back, I think, the first time we had a match together was 2006, 7, maybe 2007. And we wrestled each other a lot back then, because he was, we both started out at the same time. He may actually have started before me. I'm not real sure. Around the same time. So his big test, I was new to the territory in the Pacific Northwest, coming from Hawaii. So they were like, okay, JD, this is your first big test, is like, wrestle this guy and let us know, is this dude legit, or is he, maybe lying about his credentials, or maybe he just plain sucks. And so he wrestled me a lot, and he was sort of like my what am I looking for? Training officer, right? Like for a police officer. I'm doing the ride-along stuff. So that's where we started. And then he ended up running his very successful promotion, Northwest Pro, like 10th anniversary, I believe they're on. And I feel like I'm slowly morphing into JD now that I'm retired and I'm growing out the beard and the hair. I'm starting to look at pictures of us, and I'm like, man, we must have some shared heritage or something. So we started to look a lot
like
more
a second cousin or something.
Yeah, like when I'm clean shaven and I have short hair, I'm like, no, we look nothing alike. But then, anyway, and on top of all this stuff, I mean, he's obviously a fantastic wrestler. He's got this great, successful promotion, and he decides we need a women's promotion here in the Pacific Northwest. There's so much great wrestling, in that Seattle, Oregon, Idaho area there. But there's really no women's promotions. There's a lot of great promotions even that are run by women. And so he decided to give it a shot, and it was awesome. I was there for their first show. It was super cool to see and see his promotion grow as much as it has, bringing in so much awesome talent. And then he is also a pro wrestler who's traveling all over the country. And I think he's down in Utah and Idaho this month, I believe, or maybe next month. But that's just, a couple weekends. And again, on top of running a promotion, and he's famously a family man. He loves his kids. He's super proud of his kids. He spends a lot of time with his kids. He's a well-known, great dad and great husband. So I don't know where he finds the time.
So my favorite snack is peanut butter. What's your favorite snack or cookie and why?
Oh man, this is gonna sound kind of messed up because I don't generally eat like snacks because I eat like meal stuff as a snack. Um, so lately, my big thing, this is definitely a snack. My big thing is they've got this brand of peanuts called D's Nuts, and
Yes,
I
thank
got
you.
like a sample pack of or something somewhere, maybe like at a gas station. I don't know. But now they sell them at Walmart, and they're super cheap for peanuts, and they got a lot of awesome flavors. I really like the dill pickle ones. They actually have a banana flavored one that's really good. So yeah, those are like my go to snack now for sure. That's a solid snack.
Very nice. Tony, you're up.
Big Guns is going to kill me with this, but I want your top 5 indie tag team wrestlers.
Oh
Yep,
man,
he's gonna kill you.
again, this is gonna go like again. These aren't people who necessarily need like more boost or whatever because they're definitely like beyond at my level or beyond. But you know, a few more voices can't hurt. So number one's going to be JK Pop right here in Colorado. Anyone who
Yep.
follows sort of like this Rocky Mountain area knows who JK Pop is. I believe they were like Rocky Mountain Pro Tag Team champions for 2 years straight or something. They may still be. I'm not real sure. But they're
I
super
think they
awesome.
just lost them.
Yeah. Because they just had a match against each other, so that makes sense. Man, and they're just they're such great dudes in and out of the ring. And they do travel quite a bit. They get down Texas. I know they've done Washington, California, I'm pretty sure, definitely Utah, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma. So they're very well traveled. So they're awesome. Number 2 is going to be the Pillars of Destiny, which, again, I'm showing my favoritism to the local area. That's Hunter Gray and Paul Titan. They're awesome, and you know they've been on everything. They did some WWE stuff, AEW stuff, Impact. They did tours of Japan. Like they're gonna bust out. If you haven't heard of the Pillars, you're gonna. I really like the Hammer Brothers from right there in the Pacific Northwest. You guys ever seen them live?
Yes,
We
and we
interviewed them.
just interviewed them like 2-3 days ago.
Man, I don't know what it is about it, but they're not funny because they're actually pretty intimidating. They're pretty big dudes. They're just so entertaining. So they're gonna be one.
Mhm.
So number 4 is one that I think a lot of people know about if they follow indie wrestling. But I think people who don't closely follow indie wrestling, but maybe follow like at least down to the Impact level, probably also may know, and that's the Wasteland War Party. Man, that is such a cool gimmick. A lot of people are like, oh, they're sort of like Mad Max, or oh, they're sort of like this or that. What they really remind me of is I had this guy in my neighborhood who, like, now I know was probably like on the spectrum. But back then, we didn't really know. But he was really smart. He didn't have a lot of great social skills, but he was really into Warhammer.
Right.
And the way he painted he had 2 big armies, right? So when you do the old Warhammer, you sort of generally focus on one army. And this dude was so good at painting and assembling his armies. He had 2 separate ones. So one of them was like the Rat Army, whatever that was. And the other one was sort of this barbarian one that kind of straddled almost future, like steampunkish, but not quite. that's what Wasteland War Party looks like to me. And it's such a freaking – I know it's a trio. But trios count in this top 5. Gosh,
No,
dang
they
it.
do.
And then my number 5 is going to be the Colony. For those of you who've been following indie wrestling a long time, you know about the Colony out of the Northeast, famously in Chikara. But guess what? They're still together. They're still around. They're still wrestling. They're such an awesome tag team and such cool dudes, or ants, if you will, in and out. So, yeah, there you go. It's my top 5.
So, if you could book a dream match, who would be in it and who would you put over?
Like anyone from any time.
Yep.
I would put Farmer Burns against like sort of late champion era Luthez, and I wouldn't need to put anyone over because I would make it 100% legit, and I'd see what Mr. Thez is really made of.
I love that.
That's good.
Full disclosure, I study pro wrestling, right? So I think I'm one of the people that understand that whole, like,
Man, there used to be this Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum down in Wichita Falls, Texas. And I spent like 4 months down there at the Air Force Base there doing some training. And I was luckily able to, at the time the thing was still going full bore, spend just hours in there. And they had a wrestling ring on their second floor where there was training. So I was able to help train people and wrestle on the weekends because I wasn't working the weekends on the Air Force Base. So that was really my first exposure to Texas. But I was able to wrestle all over Texas and sort of be like a volunteer guy at the Hall of Fame Museum. It was awesome. But they have so much stuff, and unfortunately the financial stuff didn't work out, taxes, whatever, and it sort of collapsed. And some of the stuff has gone missing. Most of the stuff has been returned to original owners. But they had so many like amazing old documents that dated all the way back to seriously like Farmer Burns era. There's like old newspaper clippings, and I was able to like hold these, for me, are like treasured documents, right? So I'm working on my master's degree in history. That's one of the things I do outside of wrestling. And so a lot of historians have like their, to coin a phrase, Holy Grail documents. To some, maybe it is the Holy Grail. Should such a thing exist. But, some people, it's like, God, I wish I could touch the Declaration of Independence or whatever. And to me, it's like old baseball stuff and old wrestling stuff. It has a smell, man. I can't describe it unless you've had it. It's like a smell of like, it is. I know what the smell is. It's literally the smell of decay from that paper. But, man, just to be able to have that tactile sensation of like touching it, it's nothing like it. So yes, I appreciate that you appreciate old timey wrestling. Back then, man, you never knew if that thing was real, if that dude was going to listen to what the booker said or not.
Right. The time I had that experience, I wrestled not wrestled, but I went to a few shows with my friends because we did a training school down here in Kelso at Hillsboro for Tito's at the flea market up there. And he ran a gym, but he kept the door closed to the gym and only let a few people in there, to train. But we had been up there so much, he's like, you guys want to see what's behind the door? And we're like, well, of course we want to see what's behind the door. We've been up here for months and you haven't shown us anything behind the door. So he opens it up and it's the 85 Starrcade ring that Flair took on Harley Race in for the world title. And I swear to you, the first thing I said is, can I touch it?
That's so weird. Like how does one obtain such a relic,
Exactly. I'm like, what? The whole time I've been sitting next to this door and the ring's been on the other side and I just now know it's there.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Big Money is in the chat. So, with
And
that,
he said your comment on your dream match smells like money.
All right. Thank
So-
you. I really
so
love
with
it.
that, I'll do my shameless plug for our co-host because he's not here to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, starting in July, Big Money Exchange features Big Money Compound, a online, yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard me correctly, an online training school. So, and it starts the first Tuesday of July, $25 a session, $150 a month. They're going to teach you the basics while you're online until they get a ring. His first trainer is a 20-year veteran of the wrestling world, none other than Southern California's own SoCal Crazy.
Yes.
So please, anybody, even if you are a wrestler now and you want to just rehone your skills, come support the Big Money Compound. Big Money Dodge would love to have you guys. $25 a session, $150 a month. First trainer, SoCal Crazy.
All right, Tony, you're up for a question, Blake.
Well, I guess my final question, sir, is where can we find you on social media? And of course, your commentary is going to be happening this Saturday for a very awesome event. Like we say, you know, we also have up in our area Strawberry Fest. Another promotion of ours that we are near and dear to is Combat Pro Wrestling here in Marysville. So 2 great promotions, 2 great shows going on this weekend. Lots of wrestling.
Yo. Y'all know my boy Chris Marks?
Yes.
Yes, we had the pleasure of interviewing him.
What you know about Chris Marks? You know him.
I
and
know-
him and I.
I know I went
worked in
heel
WWE
during that
together.
promo.
Hang on, let him talk, dude. What's that?
Sorry.
Him and I worked in WWE together and famously spotted the aforementioned JD Mason out amongst the fans and ruthlessly mocked him from backstage and then proceeded to eat the finest crick catering in the wrestling business, World Wrestling Entertainment Catering. Anyway, Chris Marks a big deal there at Combat Pro Wrestling there, ladies and gentlemen. So I agree with that shout out 100%.
Okay, and now I've got to go online here just for a second, Mr. Noss, and let me rebuttal. Mr. Marks, I never knew you were in WWE. I'm not worthy, sir.
Boy, that was a backtrack from the interview.
All right, very well then.
Nathan, go ahead.
So I'm gonna ask my final question in honor of our co-host. We know you've wrestled in California. I believe you said that earlier in the. So who are some of the people that you wrestled in California? Since Big Money has been over there quite a bit.
So the last time I was in California was, this is funny because I mentioned it earlier and I didn't know if we'd get to it or not. So when I was in the Marine Corps, we had like right off the base, there was a little mall and they had a Suncoast. For those of you who don't remember, Suncoast was like a store in the mall that would sell DVDs. And they had a very small wrestling selection at this Suncoast, and they always had the XPW DVDs. And so I started picking them up, and I was like, who is this crazy, bald, fat dude? This dude is like, so back then, we used to have portable DVD players. And then you had like a barracks room. And my barracks room, I shared it with 3 other dudes. It was like a big barracks room. And we had one TV. And we were always playing video games on it. And I was like, you guys, stop playing video games. You got to check this MFer out. And so we're having a few beverages. Of course, we weren't 21 yet, so they were soda pops, naturally. A United States Marine would never drink underage. But we started watching this Supremes matches. and it was just nuts. We were like huge fans of his through these DVDs, and they had like 8 of them. So we had the whole set, and eventually like everyone had their own set. This Suncoast place was probably like, what is happening? But it was all through Supreme. Like, we liked all the other guys, and I was really the only wrestling fan. So like when Candido showed up and Shane Douglas and stuff, they didn't really have any idea who that was. That was just other wrestlers to them. Like even like when Juventud showed up, there's like, okay. But so yeah, we're huge fans of Supreme. And then several years later, I wrestled in this boondoggle in San Francisco at the Cow Palace. So at least I can say I wrestled legitimately at the Cow Palace. It was in a battle royal, and none of us got paid, and everyone that was there got scammed by the promoter. But hey, whatever. I let Ultimo drag in my wrist tape, so it was worth it. But we did a little thing there, and so we did. So this is when I was living in Montana. So me and another wrestler drove from Montana all the way down to San Francisco, and then had some matches there in the California area. This was after I'd gotten out of the Marine Corps and before I joined the Army. So for everyone, I was in the military for over 20 years, and I was in 3 branches. I started in the Marines, then in the Army, and then I retired out of the Air Force. So it can be done, ladies and gentlemen, because I did it. So between the Marine and Army time, that was the only time I was a civilian from the time I was, 18 to 4 months ago or whatever. I was briefly a civilian. So we were doing this, and so we drove down there to San Francisco, and we had some matches after this boondoggle because we had no money and we had no way to get home. And I did a show with Supreme. And first off, may he obviously rest in peace. We all miss him. He's a very nice guy, but he was way shorter than I expected. I thought he was like 7 feet tall. He's shorter than me, but he was such a cool dude, and he is such just a bad dude in the ring. When you see him, and especially when you see him on DVD, is how I was introduced to him. Mm-hmm. And when I was telling him, like, oh man, we were in Afghanistan just like watching your stuff on these little DVD players. And he got, he was not a super emotional guy, but you could tell like that really resonated with him. And he obviously had tons of fans. He had hundreds of thousands of fans, but I don't think he'd ever had fans like of that extent before. And, right. And I could tell it meant a lot to him. So unfortunately, Supreme passed away. And in honor of him, they did a tribute show. And one of the things they had was a battle royal. And immediately when I heard about it, I was like, I got to be on this. And I didn't know from Adam who any of these people were. I had no connections. I did have friends on the show, including Mr. Happy, who you'll be interviewing shortly, I believe.
Yep.
And I didn't know that at the time, though. And so I just reached out like dead cold, and I sent him a promo. I was like, here's what I am. Here's my story of what Supreme means to me. Can I be on the show? And they were like, we can't not have you on the show. So that was awesome. And, I got to meet so much cool talent and so many cool wrestlers. And that was the first time I ever met or heard of, Eli Everfly. And we were in a match together. That was really cool. And I got to work with my sometimes friend, sometimes enemy, depending on his opinion on hip hop. Gino Rivera. Gino, I told you so. That was the first and only time I have ever been in the ring against him. And that was for a promotion called Crimson Crown Wrestling. The Crimson Crown Wrestling is still out there. They do have a lot of deathmatch stuff. So if you're not into that, that's probably not the promotion for you. But that was the last promotion I worked at in California there in LA. And I'd really like to work anywhere in San Diego. San Diego is my favorite city of any city in the world. So for all you San Diego promoters, at Wrestle Big Guns, that's how you can find me on all the social media. Hint, hint. And I'm good at following the rules, like covering up the logo of my beverage.
Well, I know Big Money has some connections in California, so I'm sure he can get you in touch with some people.
And I just actually got in contact with a promoter in San Diego.
Yes.
Perfect.
So,
She's at the San Diego
Wrestling Academy, I
Wrestling
think is what it-
Academy.
Perfect. Let's hook it up. Let's put it in contact at Wrestle Big
Yeah.
Guns, or for you bookers promoters out there, WrestleBigGuns@gmail.com. So that's our lesson to all you wrestlers out there. Make sure your username is the same on everything.
makes sense.
Absolutely.
So before we let you go, speaking of promotions, in about a year, I'm gonna be launching my promotion, which is called Inclusion Pro. Sorry, our promotion, which is called either that or you were just trying to clear something out of your throat. I'm not
No,
quite
I
sure.
was waiting for the hour.
It's called Inclusion Pro Wrestling. And our first show will be a charity show for the Special Olympics. So I would love to have you, if you're available, either work or help do commentary or anything on that show would be awesome.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Keep me in the loop. I love doing charity stuff. Love the Special Olympics. Where I grew up in, in Missoula, Montana, we have a big Special Olympics presence there. And one of the big donators to the Special Olympics is a musician, Huey Lewis, from Huey Lewis and the News.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Famous for Back to the Future. And he lives right there where I grew up, somewhere out there. I don't know. Never went to his house. But he's a big Special Olympics supporter. And so it was always cool to see, our classmates and stuff would, have stories of meeting him, or, he would do concerts for them and stuff. So we also worked at Special Olympics when I was stationed in Korea. There's the Special Olympics, like South Korea.
Very cool.
Had some Americans that were, the children of service members. And so I did a little bit there too. So yes, anyway, I love Special Olympics. It's awesome. Great idea. I love the Pacific Northwest. I'm from kind of the Pacific Northwest. I'm the Pacific Northwest side of Montana, so I'll claim it.
Gotcha.
But I have
I'll
close ties to the area, so I love it.
I'll definitely keep you updated when we get, closer to getting some of the details worked out. So
Sweet, count me in, 100%.
And we're inviting a bunch of the Colorado a lot of the Colorado people too. I mean,
yes,
Panda's coming, Kay is coming.
Oh, Panda has to come. We got the #1 Panda fan.
of course. I think he'd be devastated if she didn't come.
Are you telling me there is not some fan somewhere in the People's Republic of China who is not a bigger Panda fan than you? I don't believe it. I believe her fans number in the millions. But unfortunately, because of a sadly repressive regime, they're unable to spread their love for Pandemonium as you have. That's what I think anyway.
So he's got some competition now.
That's right, Big Money. You're not on the show, so Pandemonium, 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 and Pandemonium. There we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Jeez. You think this guy likes Pandemonium or what?
Just a little. I wouldn't be surprised if he had like a shrine or something somewhere in his house. Yeah.
You
All right,
never
I'll tell her you said hi, because she is the main event of that CSW Headlocks for Hospice show that you mentioned. And that is a big accomplishment, huge accomplishment. Not the first women's main event, but the first one of a show of this magnitude. So she's earned her spot. It was awesome. She beat me in a stinking battle royal that I lasted 42 minutes in, only to be bested by some endangered species. Unreal. It actually wasn't her that. It wasn't her that was involved. It was a young man named, Goody Floyd and Niles Blood. We were all sort of got tangled up, and Niles Blood eliminated us, but we got him in the end. So.
And Niles will be on later on in the year too, I believe. But
Yep.
Oh, good. Make sure you ask him about the DDT I gave him on the floor for eliminating me. But we're all blessed because had I not been eliminated, your favorite wrestler, Pandemonium, likely wouldn't have won. I like Pandemonium just as much. The next guy, she can't beat Big Guns. I'm sorry, Panda, and I'll say it to your face.
I love this. And what's funny is 2 days after that battle royal, we had Killian Crow on, and boy, did he have fun with Killian over that.
Well, I'm sure Killian had a lot to say.
Oh yes, yes he did.
You know what he can't say, that he beat Pandemonium, because quite the opposite was true. I was there.
He can't say that he beat Bruce Wayne's either. So.
Oh, he went there.
But anyways, again, we appreciate everything you do for the state of Colorado for CSW. You know, training all the athletes, getting them ready to go. Great show this weekend. Best of luck to everybody in the show. We're probably going to listen online to your commentary. So hopefully Panda can beat Taya and take that title away from her. She's held it for a year. If not, we're going to have to call Taya Roman Reigns of CSW.
Oh, yeah. God, you're on a roll tonight.
What a reign, though, huh? What a reign. There's never been anything like it. I think there's only been like two, maybe three CSW women's champions.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see. I mean, Panda has already been in some really high-profile matches for how young in her career she is. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very interesting to see how she does under that spotlight. But a lot of people that she knows personally and that she has trained with are also having really high-profile matches that night. Mm-hmm. So maybe she can sort of feed off their energy, and we might have like a youth revolution, you know. Jack Dillon might defeat Ryzen, Type 1 might defeat the Provider, and Panda might defeat Tyra. Or the opposite could be true. That young revolution could prove that they ain't got what it takes, and they get stomped down by that old guard. So it could be a mix and match of their end. Who knows? It's going to be so unpredictable. That's what I love about professional wrestling. I don't know what's going to be happening, but luckily I will be safely behind the commentary booth with Killer Chad Kalina, far away from getting my head bashed in with a steel chair.
But again, thank you so much for everything you do for Colorado. Thank you so much for your service. Again, ladies and gentlemen, please donate to said cause for Headlocks for Hospice. Do like we did on the podcast. Donate. Every penny helps. Let's get the hospice the help that they deserve, you know. So get out there and donate.
And we want to thank you for being on tonight. You're more than welcome to come back anytime.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a real pleasure. I always love talking about myself. So anytime you need someone. Next time, I will make sure my voice is a little more well-rested. I've been doing commentary, and then I had to give lectures this week. So luckily, I don't have to say anything at all tomorrow, so I can save it all for commentary Saturday night at CSW's Headlocks for Hospice. All right, final time we mentioned it, I promise.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and for that, ladies and gentlemen, Nathan, dude, you stink. It's time for your fleet up. We'll talk to you guys later.
Yep.